Hello and welcome to India Today Global. I'm Geeta Mohan and some breaking news coming in. The Trump administration has said that individuals operating the Iranian port of Chabahar will face sanctions from the 29th of September, a decision that will have implications for India, which is involved in developing a terminal at that strategic port that connects India to Afghanistan, circumventing Pakistan. This comes a day after President Trump wished Prime Minister Narendra Modi birthday wishes. India will be impacted by this decision, wherein 29 September is the deadline after which Chabahar port and those functioning there would be sanctioned, and India will be impacted as it is involved in development of a terminal at the Chabahar port on the Gulf of Oman. On May 13, 2024, India signed a 10-year contract to operate the port that will help it expand trade with Central Asia and had got a carve-out from the US administration when it comes to sanctions and sanctions against Iran. Chabahar port was left alone. This time around, under Trump, it is coming under sanction. The other big story, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan sign a defense pact, promising an attack on one will be treated as an attack on both. Meanwhile, India's Ministry of External Affairs says the Indian government remains committed to safeguarding national interests and is studying the security implications of the deal. Here are the details.
In a major development, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have signed a NATO-style strategic mutual defense agreement. The pact, raising eyebrows for its wording, states that any aggression against either country shall be considered aggression against both. The agreement was signed in Riyadh by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Seen as a diplomatic win for Islamabad, the deal is widely interpreted as a strategic deterrent against India. Though Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have long shared informal defense ties, this marks the first formal pact, signaling a reset in their bilateral relations. The signing comes just a week after Israel's strike on Doha, which rattled Gulf nations that remain heavily reliant on the United States for security. Addressing speculation in New Delhi, a senior Saudi official clarified, the agreement is not a response to specific countries or specific events. Our relationship with India is more robust than it has ever been. We will continue to grow this relationship and seek to contribute to regional peace in whichever way we can. India, meanwhile, has said that it will take all necessary steps to safeguard its national interests. In a statement, the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randeep Jaiswal said that we will study the implications of this development for our national security as well as for regional and global stability. New Delhi and Riyadh share a long-standing partnership dating back to 1947. Even during India's Operation Sindoor against Pakistan, Saudi Arabia had sided with New Delhi. So while Pakistan hails the pact as a major victory, given the deepening Saudi-India relationship, New Delhi has little cause for concern. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me in an exclusive conversation is a man who knows the region, has served in Saudi Arabia, a former diplomat, Dr. Asif Saeed. He was India's ambassador to Saudi Arabia. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Saeed, over here. The Pakistan-Saudi Arabia Security Pact is going to have huge implications for India. What does it mean in terms of security? How do you read the pact itself?
See, Geeta, there is a long-standing relationship between military and defense cooperation between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, which actually goes back to several decades, especially in 70s and 80s. And Pakistan had put their soldiers' boots on the ground for many conflicts, like Gulf War and most recently in the Yemen thing. But having said that, it is not a sudden development as it may seem. This is being worked out for a long time, but I think the timing is very significant because, as you know, what would have triggered it is the recent Israeli airstrikes in Doha, and also putting a doubt in the minds of the Middle Eastern countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, who must be reassessing the security reliance on US. This is the background. So they must have been compelled to think about a kind of a joint deterrence. One, of course, the JCC itself has a mechanism for joint cooperation, but then they do not have the military capabilities themselves to kind of either deter Israel or Iran for that matter. So this is where I think the Pakistan has stepped in. So for Pakistan, it's a big boost in its cooperation, defense cooperation with all the Middle Eastern countries, but more so with Saudi Arabia, because it has elevated its relationship from a transactional nature, where it was providing some small arms and training, capacity building, and maybe some people on the ground, not more than 15 to 1600. But this has now elevated the partnership into a treaty level, security environment. And this is
Right.
also the first time that there is a nuclear dimension added to the Gulf security. So
Right.
this is something which one needs to see in its perspective, how it is going to affect the regional stability. While it may act as a deterrent both against Israel and Iran,
Right.
but at the same time, it is aimed to stabilize the Arabian Peninsula.
Right. Ambassador Saeed, how does this nuclear dimension then work with Pakistan being added into the picture?
One is that I think it is more of optics to show to Israel, and also to convey to the message to the US that you know the Gulf countries as strategic partners should not be taken for granted. The fact that the Israeli attacks on Qatar took place so close to the US biggest US base in the region, and the US's own complicity is being suspected in the region. So I think that may have compelled the Saudis to reach out to Pakistan, and nothing better than reaching out to a nuclear power, because that itself will be a deterrent. And Pakistan must have assured a nuclear umbrella for Saudis, and maybe later on to other countries, because you just see that in the last 1 week, a Pakistani Prime Minister made 3 visits in the region: two to Qatar, one immediately in the
That's
aftermath of
right.
the attack, second to participate in the emergency meeting, and of course now as leading a high-level delegation to Saudi Arabia.
Right. Dr. Saeed, now Saudi Arabia has reassured India that this pact won't affect counterterrorism cooperation, but it still adds an unexpected element. Now, during or post Operation Sindoor, Pakistan, many thought, was isolated. Yet now it seems to be projecting itself as an ally of major powers and major players. How does or how should India view this?
Yes, I mean, you see, during Operation Sindoor, of course, we did send delegations to various countries, including Gulf countries, to explain our position, and I mean, to convey our concerns. But then it's a matter of fact that none of these countries explicitly condemned Pakistan. They condemned acts of terrorism, but fell short of naming Pakistan. Now, the wording in this defense pact, saying that an attack on one country is deemed as attack on the other. We need to see how this will translate if there is another response like Operation Sindoor in response to any other cross-border terrorism. Now, but having said that, I would say that Saudis would definitely continue to maintain strong ties with India, which we have been nurturing. We have been nurturing very strong counterterrorism and security dialogues with them, built since 2016 onwards. We have a comprehensive.
Right. Again, we're talking about distrust with the US, Ambassador Saeed, but after, and the remarks that we saw of Marco Rubio on Israeli soil when it comes to the entire Qatar attack or Doha attack, which could have been the reason. But can now Saudi Arabia realistically pursue a defense pact with Pakistan without America's go-ahead, without the green signal given from America? What's your opinion, given your experience in Saudi Arabia?
I think it would be naive to think that Saudi Arabia would completely disconnect, their defense relations with US. They will continue to be heavily dependent on US because of their capabilities and their involvement, which had been there historically. But at the same time, they have an alternative now. It's not that they are only depending on Saudi Arabia, on USA. If you recall, this thought had been there about hedging, in the Middle Eastern countries, and they have been actually looking at alternate players, because they thought that the oscillatory nature of the U.S. Military diplomacy in the region. Now it is more and more evident that the U.S. is more tilted towards Indo-Pacific rather than the Middle East itself. And the last example, if you could recollect, was the Houthi attack on the Aramco thing. During that time, U.S. had explicitly told Saudi that you see, they cannot engage in someone else's war, and in fact.
Dr. Asif Saeed, thank you so much for joining us with that perspective. Now, Saudi Arabia might have wanted the pact with nuclear-armed Pakistan post the Doha attacks by Israel. But Islamabad's reasons are very different and spell danger for India. Here's my take on statecraft on why the concept of attack on one will be considered an attack on both can give Pakistan a free hand with cross-border terrorism. Watch the full episode on India Today Global's YouTube channel and do subscribe. But for now, here's the excerpt. Pakistan has finally found its insurance policy, and it's stamped with the Saudi royal seal. A mutual defense pact that declares any attack on one is an attack on both. For Islamabad, this isn't about deterrence, it's about indulgence. A free pass to keep playing arsonist in the region, knowing Riyadh is now contractually bound to hold the fire extinguisher. For decades, Pakistan has treated terrorism as a budget airline. Cheap tickets to global relevance. Pulwama, Mumbai, Pahalgam. Each hike tested India's patience. Now, with Saudi Arabia formally hitching itself to Pakistan's wagon, those hikes could turn into mountain-sized provocations. And the world? Washington smiles politely, nodding along, as if nothing explosive just happened. The irony is hard to miss. India shows restraint, Pakistan shows provocation, Saudi shows loyalty, and America shows silence. Which begs the question, how much longer before this dangerous pact turns Pakistan's mischief into a regional disaster? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. So Saudi Arabia and nuclear-armed Pakistan have just signed a mutual defense pact. On paper, it looks routine. An attack on one will be considered an attack on both. But the reality is far more dangerous. Pakistan, long the architect of cross-border terror and nuclear brinkmanship, now has its most powerful ally yet. And India, once again, is forced into a defensive posture, tested at every turn. Because in Pakistan, terror is not a failure, it is a strategy. Pahalgam, Pulwama, Mumbai terror attacks. Each attack was deliberate, a high contention designed to test India's restraint. For decades, Pakistan has leveraged terror as policy, testing India's limits. Now, with Saudi Arabia formalizing its backing and US engagement allowing strategic flexibility, Pakistan's generals can plan provocations without fear. India is forced into defense. Pakistan escalates. The pact ensures that Pakistan escalates, secure in the knowledge that Saudi Arabia will shield it politically and militarily. And while US engagement preserves strategic flexibility, it indirectly allows Islamabad latitude to escalate against India. India faces calculated aggression at every turn. The Saudi-Pakistan Pact, combined with US engagement, emboldens Pakistan's generals to escalate, knowing the global system provides them protection. From Kashmir to the border region, every act of terror, every provocative statement, every nuclear threat is calculated under this protective shield. Saudi Arabia and the US enable Pakistan's impunity. India remains the responsible actor forced to navigate the most dangerous strategic environment it has ever faced. The pattern is undeniable. All the terror attacks in India, Pahalgam, Pulwama, Mumbai, each escalation is a test, each act of terror a hike, and now Pakistan acts with formal backing from Saudi Arabia and a permissive US strategic posture. India is forced into defense, restraint, and strategic coercion, while Pakistan escalates with impunity. South Asia's future is being defined by this strategic triangle. Pakistan escalates, Saudi Arabia shields, the United States preserves Islamabad's maneuvering space. India remains the responsible actor, forced to defend its sovereignty while navigating state-sanctioned terror, cross-border provocations, and nuclear brinkmanship, all calculated under the protective shield of its neighbors' allies. Because in a region armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons, cross-border terror, and protective allies, coercion is not weakness, it is survival. But survival has its limits. After receiving a grand royal welcome on his two-day visit to the United Kingdom, US President Donald Trump arrived at Chequers to meet Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Finally, the testy relations between the two countries after Trump took office now seem to be back on track. During their meet, Donald Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer officially signed a landmark technology partnership aimed at boosting collaboration in areas such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and nuclear energy. Describing the deal as groundbreaking, Starmer emphasized its significance, calling it the largest investment package in British history. During a meeting with business leaders, US President Donald Trump, seated next to Prime Minister Starmer, underscored the enduring and unbreakable bond between the United States and the United Kingdom.
The ties between our countries are priceless, and it's really an inheritance. It's a beautiful inheritance. Today we're making those ties closer than ever before. We've done some things that financially are great for both countries, and we work together, and it keeps us together, and I think it's an unbreakable bond we have, regardless of what we're doing today. I think it's unbreakable. But this is very big, and I want to thank all of the incredibly talented business leaders, the best in the world, biggest in the world, here this afternoon for investing in the Anglo-American Alliance.
And just look at what we're achieving today together. The deals and investment that you're announcing today break all records. What a day. £250 billion flowing both ways across the Atlantic. It is the biggest investment package of its kind in British history by a country mile.
Washington often lectures the world on democracy, yet its own actions raise questions. ABC News has pulled Jimmy Kimmel Live off air indefinitely, sparking outrage over free speech.
Hours after the US government threatened to revoke ABC News broadcasting license, Walt Disney-owned ABC made a shocking announcement, pulling Jimmy Kimmel Live show off the air indefinitely. The move followed a controversial remark by host Jimmy Kimmel about the shooter who killed conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Earlier this week, Kimmel accused MAGA gang of exploiting Kirk's killing for political gain.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
Kimmel referenced Trump's earlier bizarre response when asked how he was coping after Kirk's death during a campus shooting in Utah.
I asked, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks. They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House.
Following ABC's announcement, Trump celebrated online, quoting, "Great news for America. The rating-challenged Jimmy Kimmel Show is cancelled." Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that is possible.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings.
Trump went further, mocking other late-night hosts who often criticized him. In the same Truth Social post, he labeled Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers total losers.
Of fascism being hammered.
ABC's decision sparked backlash. Kimmel supporters gathered outside the El Capitan Entertainment Center in Los Angeles, demanding Disney to reinstate the show.
Jimmy Kimmel says Trump must go. Jimmy Kimmel says Trump must go. Jimmy Kimmel says Trump must go.
Politicians, actors and TV hosts voiced alarm on social media.
Well, we're living in under a fascist regime right now, and they're going to kill the opposition in every which way they can, and so we're seeing it happen in real time. It's very scary, very depressing.
But the duplicity remains in what US preaches and practices. While Washington lectures the world on democracy, it fails to uphold its own principles, directly undermining the First Amendment. The First Amendment of the US Constitution protects against government interference in religion, speech, the press, and the right to assemble or petition. Pulling Kimmel's show is a direct attack on those fundamental rights. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
Last night at Windsor Castle, it was all about glitz and glam. Melania vowed in a bright lemon yellow gown, Kate shined in gold, rocking the iconic Lover's Knot tiara. The menu, fancy bites and rare vintage drinks, including a special 1912 cognac. Sparkle, style and royal vibes made this banquet one to remember.
Last night at Windsor Castle, it wasn't just about politics. It was about glamour, sparkle, and a feast fit for royalty. Britain's King Charles III hosted US President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump for a glittering state banquet, and the fashion took center stage. Melania Trump turned heads in a bold lemon yellow Carolina Herrera gown, a strapless, floor-length crepe creation with a baby pink belt clinching the waist. It was a statement look, paired with her hair loose and cascading, and finished with dazzling drop earrings that shimmered in the candlelight. This is exactly the kind of boldness Melania is known for. Standing opposite her in pure regal splendor was Kate Middleton. The Princess of Wales dazzled in a gold lace evening gown by Philippa Lepley. The striking full-length lace coat featured hand-embroidered roses in a touching tribute to UK's craftsmanship. But the true highlight, the Lover's Knot tiara, one of her signature royal jewels, a timeless mix of tradition and modern star power. Together, the two women created a fashion face-off moment, one walking sunshine, the other gilded royalty. And social media was quick to explode with side-by-side comparisons. But what's a royal banquet without a lavish menu? Guests, including Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Apple boss Tim Cook, were served a refined starter of watercress panna cotta, followed by chicken ballotines wrapped in courgettes. Dessert brought the drama with a beautifully sculpted vanilla ice cream bomb with a raspberry sorbet interior, each course paired with fine wines from the royal cellars. But it was the after-dinner drinks that grabbed eyeballs. A vintage 1945 port wine in honor of the teetotaler Trump having been the 45th US president. Adding a truly personal touch was the rare 1912 cognac, celebrating the birth year of the president's Scottish-born mother.
To President Trump.
So, between the gowns, the jewels, and that unforgettable vintage cognac, this state banquet was less about the signatures and handshakes and more about style and spectacle. With Dibangana Datta, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
That's all in this edition of India Today Global. Do stay tuned to the channel for all the latest news and updates. Goodbye and take care.